There's a sentence by Eckhart Tolle that no spiritual guru wants you to hear, a phrase so simple, it would destroy the entire spiritual self-help industry if truly understood. And I know why this sentence is so dangerous, because I myself once sold this illusion. For years I watched people spend fortunes chasing awakening, $10,000 courses, weekend retreats costing more than a used car, spiritual coaching promising enlightenment in 12 modules. But Tolle said something that cuts through all the pretense. Want to know what it is? You are already complete. There is nothing to be achieved. Seems obvious, right? But wait, there's more. And the key word here is already. Not can become. Not has the potential to be. Already is. This means that right now, breathing as you are breathing, feeling what you are feeling, being exactly who you are complete. Nothing is missing. Nothing ever was missing. If you truly believe this, if you internalize this truth deep within your soul, what would happen to all those courses promising to complete you? What would happen to those endless journeys of self-discovery that always end with, now you need the next level? They would simply disappear, and that's precisely why this message doesn't appear on the first pages of best-selling spiritual books. That's why it doesn't headline the Instagram profiles of quantum coaches, because the truth doesn't need to be sold. It simply is. But let me tell you what I discovered when I stopped searching. For 15 years, I was a compulsive seeker. Transcendental meditation, ayahuasca in Peru, silent retreats that cost 3 minimum wages, energy healing with unpronounceable names. And you know what I found? There was always a next level, always something deeper to discover, always another key, another secret, another dimensional portal to access, until the day I read that Tolle quote for the 10th time, and something broke inside me. It didn't break in the sense of shattering, it broke in the sense of opening up. You are already complete. Not, you will be complete when. Not, you can become complete if. You already are. But here's the problem. If you are already complete, what exactly are these courses selling? The answer will shock you. They are selling the feeling of incompleteness. They need you to feel broken, so you'll buy the glue. And it works perfectly, because the mind loves a project. The mind loves the idea of becoming. It's like an addiction. The more you seek, the more you need to seek. But Tolle broke this gear with brutal simplicity. The present moment is the only time that exists. And in this moment, you already have everything. Can you feel how dangerous this is to the spiritual industry? If the present moment contains everything, if you already have everything, then what exactly are you buying? Let me show you how the manipulation works. First, they convince you that you are lost, that there's something fundamentally wrong with you, that you need to be corrected, or aligned, or deprogrammed. Then, they present a path, always a long, expensive, and complex path, because the journey needs to be grand to justify the price. And in the end they hand you back to yourself, but not before making you believe that it was their method that brought you here. It's brilliant, and it's completely unnecessary, because you never left. Tolle explains this in a way that cuts right to the bone. Spiritual realization is seeing clearly that what you were looking for was already here all along. Where did I find this quote? On a lost page of The Power of Now, a page that most people skip because it's in the middle of the book, between more glamorous concepts. And that page changed everything for me, because there I understood that my entire spiritual quest had been based on a false premise, the premise that I wasn't enough as I was, but what if, just what if? You were already exactly who you need to be. What if all this running after spiritual certifications, enlightened masters, ancient secret techniques, what if it was all just an elaborate detour from the obvious? Want to know the exact moment this became clear to me? I was at a 7-day retreat, 3rd day, 5 a.m. meditation. We'd been doing this for 3 days straight. Wake up, meditate, eat in silence, meditate, walk in silence, meditate, sleep. Everyone was exhausted, but also hopeful. You know that feeling that you're at the limit, but that something big is going to happen. The instructor was talking about transcending the ego when suddenly he stopped mid-sentence, looked at the group with an expression I will never forget. It was as if he had just realized something absurd, and he said, Do you know how much this retreat costs? The question fell like a bomb in the morning silence. $15,000. And do you know what the secret is that I'm going to teach you? The silence became even denser. You could feel the anxiety in the air, people leaning forward. Finally, they were going to hear the secret. Stop searching. You are already free. And then he laughed. It wasn't a cruel laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had just realized the absurdity of the situation. An honest laugh. Painfully honest. You paid $15,000 for me to say that. But you already knew. You always knew. You just forgot to remember. Half the group got angry and some asked for a refund. Others accused him of charlatanism. But I understood. He had just done what Tolle does on every page of his books. He pointed to the freedom that was already there. The difference is that Tolle doesn't charge $15,000 for it, and it's precisely this difference that makes his message so dangerous. Because if freedom is already here, if completeness is already a fact, then the entire structure of spiritual evolution collapses like a house of cards. There are no levels to climb, no stages to complete, no graduations in consciousness. There is only this moment, this breath, this realization that you have always been free. But then comes the question that won't be silenced. If it's so simple, why is it so difficult to accept? The answer lies in what Tolle calls the mind's resistance to the present. Your mind has been conditioned to believe that happiness is always somewhere else, in the enlightened future, in the idealized past, in the next spiritual discovery, anywhere but here, any moment but now. And this resistance fuels the entire spiritual growth industry. Because as long as you believe you need to arrive somewhere, someone will always be willing to sell you the map. But Eckhart Tolle breaks the map. He simply says, you've already arrived. You've always been here. And that, my friend, is revolutionary. Because it means all that spiritual anxiety, all that rush to awaken, that feeling of being behind in the evolutionary race, it's all just an illusion. You're not behind. You're not lost. You don't need fixing. You are exactly as you should be, right now. In this way, and this realization, when it truly happens, is more liberating than any ancient technique or quantum method you can imagine. But there's a catch, and it's a catch that will shake everything you believe about spirituality. Because if you are already free, if you are already complete, then what is the role of suffering in your life? Why do some things still hurt? Why do some patterns still repeat? Why, even knowing this truth, do you still find yourself seeking something more? The answer lies in a second phrase by Eckhart Tolle, a phrase even more dangerous than the first, and it's about this phrase that we're going to talk about now, because it doesn't just destroy the spiritual industry, it rebuilds your entire relationship with life. Are you ready to listen? Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Seems contradictory, doesn't it? If you are already complete, if you are already free, where does the pain come from? But Tolle isn't denying pain. He's making a surgical distinction between pain and suffering, and this distinction changes everything. Pain is what happens. Suffering is the story you tell about what happens. Pain is, my chest feels tight. Suffering is, my chest feels tight, and this means I'm weak, that I haven't evolved enough, that I should be able to control this, that enlightened people don't feel these things, that I'm doing something wrong on my spiritual journey. Do you see the difference? Pain is simple, direct, momentary. Suffering is complex, elaborate, infinite. Pain is the present moment. Suffering is resistance to the present moment. You can feel sadness without suffering from sadness. You can feel fear without suffering from fear. You can even feel anger without suffering from anger, because suffering doesn't come from the feeling. It comes from the judgment about the feeling. And here's the insight that no spirituality course wants you to fully understand. You can be free even while feeling pain. In fact, freedom is not the absence of pain. It is the absence of resistance to pain. This means that all that search for a permanent state of ecstasy, that race after infinite and uninterrupted happiness, that promise that you can completely transcend human suffering, it's a lie, a lucrative lie, but still a lie. Because true freedom is not in escaping the human condition. It is in embracing it completely. And that, paradoxically, is what liberates you from it. But how does this work in practice? How do you embrace something that hurts? How do you accept something you don't want? The answer is in a third phrase by Eckhart Tolle, the most dangerous of all. Don't resist what is. Don't deny what isn't. Don't cling to what changes. If you truly apply this, if you live this phrase, your life will never be the same, but it will also never need to be changed again. Let me explain why this phrase is so revolutionary and why it scares the transformation salespeople so much. First, don't resist what is. This means stopping fighting against the present reality. Stop wasting energy trying to make things different from what they are now. It seems simple, but it's brutal in application, because it means accepting that pain in your chest when you think about it, accepting that anxiety that comes out of nowhere at 3 in the morning, accepting that you are not yet the person you would like to be, without trying to fix it, without trying to transcend it, without trying to transform it into light and love. Just accept. And here's what happens when you stop resisting. The pain stops growing, because the pain you feel is not just the original pain. It's the original pain plus the resistance to pain. It's like having a splinter in your finger and poking it all the time. The splinter hurts, but poking it hurts much more. Tolle discovered that 90% of our suffering comes from resistance, not from the pain itself. And this discovery completely destroys the spiritual business model based on healing suffering. Because if suffering is optional, if it only exists when we resist, then there is nothing to be healed. There is only something to be understood. Second, don't deny what isn't. This part is even more subtle and more dangerous. It means stopping living in imaginary worlds. Stop denying reality because it doesn't match your spiritual worldview. For example, you've been meditating for years, but you still feel anger. Instead of accepting that anger is part of the human experience, you deny it. Spiritual people don't feel anger. I must be doing something wrong. And then you buy another course on emotional management, or alchemy of feelings, or quantum reprogramming of anger. But Tolle cuts to the root. Don't deny what isn't. The anger is here. That is what is. Don't invent a story about how it should be different. And the third element is the most explosive of all. Don't cling to what changes. This includes your spiritual states. That feeling of deep peace you had in meditation, it will pass. That mental clarity that lasted 3 days after the retreat, it will pass. That moment of ecstasy where you felt connected to the universe, it will also pass. And it will not only pass, it needs to pass. Because if it didn't pass, if you stayed permanently in that state, you would stop growing. You would stop being human. Spiritual states are like the weather, they come and go, and that's natural. The problem is not that they pass. The problem is when you try to hold on to them. When you leave meditation trying to maintain that peace. When you return from the retreat trying to preserve that clarity. When you keep chasing that moment of ecstasy. It's like trying to hold water in your hand. The tighter you squeeze, the more it escapes through your fingers. And there's no problem with that. The problem is when you cling to these states, when you start chasing them, when you build a spiritual identity based on reproducing them. I am a person who meditates and is at peace. I am someone who has mystical experiences. I am more evolved because I feel these things, because then you become a customer of those who promise to teach you how to maintain these states, to prolong these experiences, to intensify these sensations. But Eckhart Tolle is clear. Everything changes, including your moments of enlightenment. Freedom isn't about having spiritual experiences. It's about not needing them. And that, my friend, is the end of the line for the entire industry built on altered states of consciousness. But now comes the part that will really mess with your head in a way you weren't expecting. Because if nothing needs to be changed, if you are already complete, if pain is acceptable and spiritual states are temporary, then what's the point of all this talk? Why did Tolle write books? Why does he speak at events? Why are you watching this video? The answer will sound like a paradox, but pay attention. Awakening doesn't happen to you, it happens through you. You don't awaken. The awakening happens where you already were. It's like you're a wave in the ocean that suddenly realizes it has always been ocean. The wave didn't transform into the ocean. The wave discovered its true nature. And this discovery isn't a single event. It's a constant recognition. That's why Tolle doesn't sell a final state of enlightenment. He points to an understanding available now. But here's what no one tells you about this understanding. It doesn't solve your practical problems. You'll still need to pay bills. You'll still feel physical pain. You'll still have to deal with difficult people. The difference is that you stop carrying the emotional weight of these problems. It's like the difference between carrying a 50-pound backpack or carrying the same backpack knowing you can take it off at any moment. The physical weight is the same, but the experience is completely different. And this subtle difference is what changes everything, because you stop living in constant survival mode. You stop treating every problem as an existential threat. You simply deal with what needs to be dealt with without internal drama. But there's something even more radical about all this. When you stop resisting what is, when you stop denying reality, when you stop clinging to states, something extraordinary happens. You begin to realize that there's an intelligence operating through life that is far greater than your personal mind. And this intelligence doesn't need your help to function. Your heart beats without you commanding it. Your cells renew themselves without you controlling them. The sun rises without you coordinating it. And your life also has its own intelligence, a wisdom that knows what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. The problem is that your mind has never trusted this wisdom. It has always wanted to be in control. But Tolle showed a way out. Surrender to what is. It's not passivity. It's conscious participation in the flow of life. It's like dancing with an infinitely skilled partner. You don't need to lead, you just need to follow. And when you follow, when you truly surrender, life becomes a dance. But let me tell you what happened to me when I finally understood this. For months I struggled against this idea because it felt like I was going to lose my identity, my personality, my sense of purpose. If I wasn't striving anymore, if I wasn't trying to improve myself anymore, who was I? And then one ordinary afternoon while I was washing the dishes, something clicked. It was a Sunday. I was in the kitchen, overwhelmed by a mountain of dishes accumulated from the weekend. Plates, glasses, pans, that pile you keep pushing until you can't avoid it anymore. Normally washing dishes was torture for me. My mind would wander to the future, thinking about everything I had to do afterward, or to the past, rehashing conversations, unresolved situations. But that day, I don't know why, I realized I had never really paid attention to the act of washing dishes. The warm water touching my hands, the exact temperature, not too hot, not too cold, the soap suds, how they form, how they burst into tiny bubbles, the circular motion of the sponge, automatic yet precise, the sound of running water, constant, almost like a natural mantra. And in that moment, in that completely ordinary moment, I understood. Life wasn't somewhere else. It was there, in the warm water, in the suds, in the circular motion, in the sound of the water. And I was there too, completely present, without seeking anything, without wanting it to be different, without expecting it to end soon. Just the washing dishes, existing. It was the simplest and most profound experience of my life. No golden lights, no mystical ecstasy, no feeling of cosmic unity, just presence, simple, obvious, natural. And I understood why Tolle calls this ordinary awakening, because it's not extraordinary, it's extraordinarily ordinary. It's so common that you spend your whole life looking for it in other places, but it's here. It has always been here, in your breath, in your heartbeat, in the feeling of your feet on the ground, in the simple and undeniable reality that you exist, now, like this, and you don't need to be any other way. That's Tolle's dangerous message that modern spirituality hides. There's nothing to be achieved because you are already everything you need to be. There's nowhere to arrive because you are already where you need to be. There's no better moment than this because this is the only moment that exists. And when you truly understand this, when this truth becomes your lived reality, you stop being a customer of any spiritual system because you've discovered that you were always the treasure you were looking for. And this discovery is free. It always has been. It always will be. Because truth has no owner. Freedom has no price. Completeness cannot be sold. It can only be recognized. And this recognition is available now, not after you learn something else, not when you're more prepared, not when you've solved all your problems. Now, in this moment, in this breath, in this simple perception that you exist, and that's all. It has always been everything, and it always will be everything. Tolle's dangerous message isn't that you need to awaken. It's that you never slept. And when you realize that, really realize it, the search ends, not because you found what you were looking for, but because you discovered that you never lost anything. You were always free. You were always complete. You were always you. And that is more than enough. It's perfect exactly as it is.